Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Thank you so much for subscribing, for being members and Patreons of the channel. I really do appreciate your support. You can always make a one-time donation to the channel if you're not inclined to become a member or Patreon. That is always appreciated. And so is you hitting that thumbs up button. So much to get to today. Here's the problem. I already got to it, talked about it, forgot the volume. On this microphone, you have to press the button before it will work. So we're going to go back to the beginning. Yes, Timothy Ferreter. Where are we with Timothy Ferreter? I've already sat through the verdict watch. There's already a verdict. But that's okay. I'm going to bring you up to speed. So yesterday when we left Timothy Ferreter, they were going to have the jury come in at 1 o'clock for the closing arguments. So they had the closing arguments similar to the opening arguments. We know what the arguments on either side of this case are. You locked this child in an 8x8 box in your garage in secret. Nobody knew about this box, so you weren't exactly proud of this treatment that you were giving your son with reactive attachment disorder. And apparently your treatment wasn't working. And yes, this kid was a difficult child to manage, but that is not a defense. So the defense was saying, did we do the right thing? No, we didn't do the right thing. We should not have built that box. We should have gone for, behavioral therapy, but the parents, that's just not the way they did things. They were going to handle this themselves in the best that they could, so they could keep everybody safe that was in their home, all the other children safe, including their newborn, because they did this to this child for 3 years up in Arizona, and he hasn't been charged with that. Timothy Ferreter hasn't. Now, so closing arguments go through, and then this morning when I wake up, the jury was sent out to deliberate for a little while last night, long enough to pick a jury. They come back this morning, and I'm like, why are they all in the courtroom? Should be a verdict watch. Well, there was a problem with the jury. So the jury comes in, and apparently, well, before the jury comes in, the judge comes in. Apparently, one of the lawyers, and we later come to find out it was the defense lawyer, sent back a video that was not an exhibit, was not admitted into evidence. It's actually a video that they had edited down so you didn't see everything on the video. And then they showed the jury the edited version. Well, both versions were on the thumb drive that was given to the jury, so the jury watched both versions. And the one version it's a body cam footage, and it looks like Ronan, the 14-year-old at the time, he's now 16, was being arrested. But so the judge had to explain to the jury that he was not being arrested. He's never been arrested. This was merely him being put into the custody of the police officers after having run away. They found him at the school. They had to take him back home, or whatever they did with him after. I think they interviewed him first, which is how they found out about all this stuff. So so that was explained to the jury, and then the jury had asked if they could watch the replay of the testimony of the daughter, Ronan's older sister. So they sat and watched that for most of the morning, and this took up the whole morning. So then then the jury went out to deliberate again, and probably within the hour came back with a verdict. So here is the verdict.
All right, members of the jury, has the jury selected a foreperson? And that's you, Mr. Bushy? All right, Mr. Bushy, has the jury reached a verdict in this matter? No, you can just tell me yes or no, has the jury reached a verdict? All right, if you could please hand the verdict to my courtroom deputy. Madam Clerk, please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 15th Judicial Circuit, Criminal Division in and for Palm Beach County, Florida, case number 22 CF 001136 BMB Division V. State of Florida versus Timothy Dunn Farrader, defendant. Verdict. We, the jury, find as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant guilty of aggravated child abuse as charged in the information. As to count 2, we find the defendant guilty of false imprisonment as charged in the information. As to count 3, we find the defendant guilty of neglect of a child as charged in the information. So we say all this 12th day of October 2023 in West Palm Beach, Florida, signed by the jury foreperson.
All right, does either side wish to have the jury polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, there's been a request to have the jury polled, and that simply means that each of you will be asked the question of whether the verdict is your verdict or not. If it is, you should only answer yes. If it is not, of course, you should answer no and nothing further. So, Madam Clerk, at this time, if you could please poll the jury.
Juror 1, were the verdicts as read your verdict? Yes. Juror 2, were the verdicts as read your verdicts? Yes. Juror 3, were the verdicts as read your verdicts? Yes. Juror 4, were the verdicts as read your verdicts? Yes. Juror 5, were the verdicts as read your verdicts? Yes. Juror 6, were the verdicts as read your verdicts? Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
So what'd you think? So I hope you were watching and you saw the woman behind Timothy Farrader. That's his wife. And I was looking for a reaction from her. Now, I don't know if I put it into the footage, but before the verdict was read, before he sat down, he had given his wife a hug. And then he proceeds to sit down. Here's the verdict. Then later on, when he's remanded to custody, he gives her another hug. And then he goes off and he has to take off his suit and his tie and get fingerprinted. And so when you're convicted, obviously they convicted him on all counts, aggravated. And the only way they could get convictions on count 1 of aggravated child abuse was to find that he had imprisoned him in that box, that he had been caged in that box. So this is what the jury believed. You kept your son in a freaking cage. So the state attorney asked that he be adjudicated guilty. They could do the sentencing whenever, sentencing has been scheduled for Thursday, November 16th in the afternoon. But she said, she would like his bond revoked. That's the usual thing. He and his wife are both out on bond. And the defense attorney stood up and she's like, same thing with the last trial that we watched. He's been out on bond for 2 years. He's not left it. He has attempted to flee. He doesn't have custody of any of the children. He has a place to live. And the judge is like, nope, I'm adjudicating him guilty. Take him into custody. So this one, he gets up, hugs his wife. The Broward sheriff pulls it, or Palm Beach sheriff pulls him aside. He's got his suit and tie on. He has to take the suit off. He's got to take the suit jacket off, take his tie off, take the laces out of his shoes if he had any. All these precautions you have to take before you go to jail. Sit down, be fingerprinted. And they were doing all that as things were wrapping up. So his wife's trial is set for January, unless she takes a plea between now and then, and she might not want to go through this again. You're rolling the dice. You don't know that if if 2 juries are going to do the same thing, different things. You don't know. But things didn't go well for your husband. So do you want to spend your remaining years in jail? He's looking at up to 20 years for each charge if they're run consecutively. 60 years in jail. Wow. Okay, so we do have a new trial. I'm going to talk about that at the end. But now I want to talk about the The Kowalski case, the gift that keeps on giving. The judge is not happy in that case. I'm sure he's rethinking his life's choices right now. Like, how did I get here? How did I get put on this trial? Did I draw the short straw or what? Because he's had it. He has just really had it with, because when I was an attorney, this is all motions and stuff you would do ahead of time. You don't wait till you're ready to put a witness on the stand and then go, oh, I want to introduce this text message, and I understand they have some objections, and the, the judge is like, this is stuff you do ahead of time. Yeah, he's just about had it. Enough. You don't do it at 9:30 at night and then send your motion to me. Don't ever send a judge something you've done in the middle of the night. Just don't. They ain't gonna read it. No, they're gonna come to court next. They're gonna get their coffee. They're gonna get in the courtroom, and your ass is gonna be chewed out. Which he was pretty chomping at the bit to chew him out. Yeah. So anyway, the day does not go the way the hospital wanted it to go. It was some pretty damning testimony for the hospital. The first one was all based on a text message. The first person to testify, and they testified via deposition because doctors they're busy people. They don't have all day to wait around in a courtroom lobby to appear as witnesses. So they appear for the depositions close in time to the period of time that the trial is going to occur. They'll have their deposition taken by video, so they don't have to come to trial. Yeah. Okay. So this is what happened with the next three witnesses. So the first witness was an osteopathic physician working in the hospital seeing Maya. She referred to Maya in a text message as the ketamine girl. And she explained to the court that it's a euphemism. We don't want to put the child's name in writing. Well, when you were on the phone, didn't you call her a ketamine girl? He said, we all called her a ketamine girl because, we had to call her something and we didn't want to, she has a right to privacy. We didn't want to be calling her name out. And this is true. Yeah. Is that the guy that's screaming all day? The loud mouth down, you're calling people. Anyway, she was the ketamine girl. So she had written this text message to another doctor acknowledging that she had heard about Beata's suicide. And she was saying, I predicted that, I predicted something like this was going to happen. So he was asking her, how did you predict that? And she says, well, back in 1994, 95, when she was a resident at the Children's Hospital, they had a very similar case. And she wasn't on the case, but she remembers the case, stuck with her, because, it was a mom who had been accused of medical child abuse, and they tried to take the child away, and mom committed suicide. So this was her knowledge base. So she was predicting, I guess, that would happen again. I don't know. Now, here's the rub, though. She was chairman of the hospital ethics committee. At no time was Maya Kowalski's name ever brought up at an ethics committee meeting. Now, as a former risk manager, anytime you have a question, a parent or parents questioning the treatment, or it could be a husband, it could be like a Jehovah's Witness questioning, the administration of blood. It could be anything. You want to pull the plug. Should we pull the plug? Whose permission do we need? You call to the ethics committee and you get their opinion. Nobody ever brought Maya's case to the ethics committee in 3 months' time. And the judge is like, not the judge, but the attorney Anderson, he's like, so you've got a child in your hospital for 3 months that's saying she's being held against her will. Parents are saying that they're not allowed to take their daughter out. And no, it never comes on the radar of the ethics committee. No, it did not. So then they put the next witness on, and he's chief of staff. Yeah, he's the chief of staff. And he represents the medical staff on the risk management committee. Did you ever go to a meeting? No, we didn't go to those meetings. The meetings were held quarterly. And I got to tell you, as a risk manager, those meetings were a complete waste of time because the doctors didn't go. You were basically just giving a report about what like going over statistics and things that had happened in the risk management office in the last over the last quarter. I think I certainly, if this was something that had been on my radar, and it certainly was on Rebecca Condon's radar, the risk manager of All Children's Hospital, I would have brought it up at this committee meeting. It didn't get brought up at this meeting. At least, not that this doctor knows, because he didn't go to the meetings. No meetings. Yeah, where did I write these notes? I have all my notes mixed up now. Okay, because I recorded this once already. All right. Okay, so he was asked, well, if you had concerns, would you investigate? Well, they would do a medical staff investigation, the medical review committee, but they had no concerns, you know. So he's saying, all right, let me hold on. All right, so you got a child for 3 months who's saying she's being held against her will. She is stripped naked down to her bra and panties, held down, photographed against her will, against her parents' will. And he's like, well, we take photographs of kids all the time. It, it's just part of the medical record. Well, if the parents don't, you're telling me you take photographs all the time of parents that don't consent to this and kids that don't. He says they're kids. Of course, they don't want us to do anything to them. They don't want us to start an IV. They don't want. It's part of the treatment plan. When the parents walk in the door and they sign the general consent to go into the hospital, they're consenting to this. And he says, well, what if they change their mind? Haven't they withdrawn their consent? You have the right to withdraw that. You can sign that form when you go into a hospital, but you can also withdraw your consent for anything in the hospital. I'm withdrawing my consent. Just remember. Also remember, don't ever put anything in a text that you don't read in front of a jury in a court of law. Don't be calling people ketamine girls. Not good. And that doctor was kind of ashamed that she used that euphemism. She said, no, we probably should have come up with something better, but that's what we called her. So then they put on an expert witness in hospital administration, and his opinion was John Hopkins fell below the standard of care um, in their ability to keep their patients safe because they had all these um, manufactured silos, so to speak. And this is the terminology we used in the hospital language. That there were so many, everybody's so busy doing what they do in their own little branch of the hospital. You've got risk with administration. You've got the MEC, the Medical Executive Committee, and the physicians, and you've got the social workers and the DCF, and everybody's functioning, and nobody's talking to the others, and people are slipping through the cracks. Not good. That is not good testimony. Now, what the jury knows is that if they were to take their kids to John Hopkins and sign a consent form, God knows what's going to happen to their kid. And this hospital is being run in silos, and there's no safety net in case something shouldn't happen to my child. Yeah. Not good for John Hopkins. Not good at all. So we'll see where that testimony goes today. What's next for today for John Hopkins? I'm working on a cowl. It's going to be an oversized cowl. It's super, super soft. It's Huga yarn. Huga yarn. Do I still have it? I think I threw the thing away. But you can't see it. I showed it last night. It's got this really, it's like a dark pink ribbon that goes through the yarn and it gives us this beautiful sparkle that you can't see. But I will see it when I have it on. Oh well, it's so pretty and you can't see it. If I hold it closer, maybe? No. Oh well. So also last night, while I'm off the subject here, we're going to get to the new trial. So amigurumi, I gave that a try on Craft With Me Wednesday, which is where you make like little figures, and you're using a really tiny crochet hook and doing really tiny things with the yarn, to the point where when the hour was over, I frogged everything out and started over because I couldn't talk and count at the same time. I just can't. So here's what I ended up with over the next 2 hours. The body of the gnome, do you know how many rows are in here? Do you have any idea how many rows go into these things? So I got the body done, so I got to put the head on and then put the polyfill in and sew it up. And I got one arm done. See, the little hand, one arm of the gnome. Yeah. So 2 hours of my life that I will never get back. It'll be the first and last amigurumi project that I ever do on this channel. All right, let's talk about the new trial. So there is a new trial that started today where we're staying in Florida. Yeah. So the Palm Beach County case has wrapped things up. We're going to pack our stuff up, get on I-95, and we're heading north to Orlando. Yeah. So we're going to have to go inland. I forget how I used to get there. I forget. I would go up 95 for a while, and then you had to, yeah, anyway, because you have to go. Orlando is kind of the middle of the state. Then we got the Sarasota County Kowalski case going on the West Coast. So I think there just keep being all the camera in that little triangle. There's lots of good cases in that triangle there. Yeah. Between Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, Orlando, Tampa. They need a bullet train that just goes around those three things. Anyway, because we just love Florida, don't we? So this happened in a little area called Delaney Park, and it's a very affluent area in Orlando. David Tronis is on trial for the first-degree murder of Shanti Cooper Tronis. They got married in early 2017, but they met online in 2013. He was up north somewhere, I don't remember where. Did very, very well. Came down, spent $600,000 cash on a house that had to be completely remodeled. I don't know what this house looked like on the outside, but by 2018, when this murder occurs, the house is completely gutted down to the studs inside where they're remodeling stuff. At that point, they're not getting along anymore because of everything going on in this house. They've tried to hire this company called Zombie House Flipping. You may have seen this on, I don't know what channel it runs on. I've seen it. It's a good show. It's a house flipping show. They take rundown old houses that are just nightmares and they renovate them and sell them. And they were considering this house, but they wanted a meeting between David and Shanti. Shanti didn't want nothing to do with this. She was not had no part in the ownership of this house, which was another sore subject between these two. The other sore subject is he never worked a day in his life once he got down to Florida. Put the $600 cash on the house that he and his mom held in trust. So her name wasn't even on the deed of this house. So she comes down to meet with these zombie house flipper people, and she's, I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't want nothing. So there was some angst going on there. Meanwhile, she's living in this 1-bedroom apartment that's up in the top floor of this house with her son Jackson. I don't know how old Jackson is. He is living in the garage. so so on April 23rd, Jackson has gone to see his dad. So the only people that are home are David and Shanti. So in the morning of April 24th, David, according to David, about 9:15, she comes down. She goes outside to smoke a cigarette and by the pool. After that, he leaves. She goes upstairs to do some work. He leaves. He goes outside to walk the dogs. He comes back home, does some yard work, cleans the pools. Then when he gets all that done, it's like 11:45 ish. He decides, I'm going to take the dogs to the dog park. So he takes the dogs to the dog park, gets there about 12. I don't know if he has any evidence of any of this. This is all according to his narrative. So David is saying that he went to the dog park for 2 hours. Now my dog is worn out after 30 minutes. Like, no, he's not going to keep going for 2 hours. Plus they get thirsty and no. Anyway, so he comes back home about 2 o'clock. He gets back home and he goes back to doing yard work and cleaning the pool again. I had a very clean pool. So he decides it's getting to be time where someone needs to go pick up Jackson. And he didn't know if he was going to go or if his wife was going to go, Shanti. So he's walking up the stairs, hears the bath water running. He goes into the bathroom and she is submerged in the water, dead, obviously. So he grabs her, tries to take her out of the water. She's too heavy. So he drags her out of the water into the bedroom. Then he takes some sheets off the bed and puts her on top of the sheets. And then he calls 911, pretends he's doing CPR. And when first responders get there, like, no, nobody did CPR. This woman is obviously dead. Rigor mortis has already set in. We just love those rigor mortis time of death cases, don't we? Well, we got another one. When did she die? Okay. So, meanwhile, they search the house. There's no signs of forced entry into the house. There's valuables laying around that aren't disturbed. So they don't think that this is a burglary. They don't think that this is a robbery. And the first responders said when they got there, she was in full rigor mortis. She's stiff as a board. And her clothes, which you would think if she had been submerged in the bathtub would be soaking wet, are damp. Just damp. What's that all about? I don't know. Um, she had an emergency dental appointment for that morning. Doesn't show up. No call, no show. Doesn't go to the dentist. Her cell phone apparently um, during this entire day. In fact, she didn't get any or look at any text messages from the night before, April 23rd. None. And this was a woman she was a financial planner or something to do with finances anyway. She was very responsive to her clients. And this was something she preached to people that she trained, that you don't make your clients wait for information. As soon as they would text her, she would, she was Johnny on the spot. She would text them right back, get them the information that they needed. No text. And she hadn't read any text since the evening of the 23rd. Now we're early evening of the 24th by the time her body is found in this tub. So then we hear all this opening statements, and then the fence, no opening statement. Will reserve. The defense has the right to, they can do, plaintiff could do this too if they wanted to, but so the defense is just saying that before our case starts, we'll do our openings then. After the state is put on their case, should they survive a judgment of acquittal, which we know they will, Then we'll do our opening statements, and then we'll put on our kiss. I can't wait to hear from this guy. I want to know how old is Jackson. I want to know why they gutted a $600,000 home. I'm sure this is going to be a very, very interesting trial. Don't you just love Florida? I do. Well, no, I don't love Florida. That's why I got the hell out of Florida. But I love, they've always got interesting cases coming out of Florida. All right, guys, that is the show for today. Thank you so much for listening for the second time. I've had to listen to myself. All right, guys, I had fun today. I'll see you tomorrow in Corrupting and Crime Daily. Bye.